Singapore. Home to almost 5.5 million people. One of the world's most densely populated countries. It has no natural assets, almost no arable land, no minerals or water resources. Just half a century ago, a third world nation. Yet it's a shining example of future cities. Ingenious solutions fuel this modern marvel. A land of architectural icons, industrial giants, and green wonders. Join us as we find out how innovative planning crowns Singapore the jewel of Southeast Asia. There's a dynamism about Singapore as it powers into the 21st century. Nothing is impossible. This island nation is surviving against all the odds. With not enough land to go around, Singapore creates it. It's reclaimed a massive 18% of its landmass from the surrounding seabed and swampland. Hills have been leveled, quarries dug, and sand dredged in the country's never-ceasing search for reclamation materials. Landfill is transported to government dump zones like this to be used for reclamation. Trucks line up 24 hours a day to unload the fill to barges that deliver it to sites around the country. This soil is all destined for the new megaport Singapore is building in the west, which opens in 2027. The new port, built entirely on reclaimed land, will handle twice the cargo tonnage that the Port of Singapore currently processes. Future-proofing the expansion of the island's economy. With industrial land increasingly scarce in Singapore, the government used reclamation in 2009 to join 7 small islands together to form Jurong Island. The ambitious project was designed to boost Singapore's petrochemical industry. It's now a mecca for the heavy hitters of the petroleum industry and home to the world's 3rd largest oil refinery. Chevron, BP and Shell are all here, manufacturing a vast range of petroleum products. And it's all done without Singapore producing a single drop of its own crude oil. "130 meters beneath the surface lies an even more extraordinary industrial complex. Singapore has built this massive underground oil storage facility. It's about as big as 600 Olympic swimming pools. Jurong Island is now one of the world's biggest petrochemical hubs. Singapore hasn't let its lack of land inhibit its economic growth. If it hasn't got it, it makes it. It's here, at Marina Bay, right in the heart of the city, that nothing short of a miracle has occurred. The Sands Corporation of Las Vegas had applied for a casino license, but the government struck a tough bargain. In return for getting the license, the developer had to build a completely new commercial hub here. The integrated resort precinct, Marina Bay Sands. It includes everything from a hotel and a mall to a convention center. There's even a museum. All sitting on reclaimed land, the architecture that resulted is breathtaking. The three-towered, 55-story Marina Bay Sands complex is the centerpiece of the development. It's a bold statement on how a building can connect the city and its people in creative and dynamic ways. Besides lacking land, Singapore also lacks natural sources of water. A thirsty population demands 400 million gallons of it a day. Necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention, and Singapore has been remarkably creative to meet the demand. One way it has done it is by importing water in from Malaysia. These large white pipes on the side of the causeway linking the two countries are a liquid lifeline for Singapore. For more than 80 years, these pipes have supplied 60% of the country's water needs. Singapore has also built a network of 17 reservoirs around the country to capture rainwater. MacRitchie is the grand old dame of the system, opening in 1868. It's not just a catchment zone, it's also a place of beauty. The government preserved 12 hectares of native forest bordering the reservoir and banned any further deforestation. The reservoirs, though, don't just store rainwater that falls in their location. They are also the collection points for rainwater flowing in from a 7,000-kilometer drainage system that crisscrosses the country. Massive stormwater drains connect to smaller ones, which connect to roadside canals. The extensive drainage system is also an ingenious solution to another water problem that hampered Singapore for decades. Tropical storms. 4 times more rain falls in Singapore in a year than the City of London gets annually. Until the 1980s, widespread flooding was a regular event, especially in low-lying areas like the city centre. Now stormwater is captured by the large drainage system and fed into reservoirs, relieving problem areas from flooding. Today, the country's canals and reservoirs are not only sources of drinking water, they are also places of recreation, becoming magnets for nature lovers and runners with hiking trails. Kayaking and canoeing are also popular activities. Perhaps the greatest example of Singapore's water strategy is the damming of Marina Channel to create the Marina Barrage, the country's most urbanized reservoir. A high-tech dam was built across the Marina Channel to separate the Singapore Strait from the bay. A $226 million feat of engineering that keeps the seawater out while controlling water levels within. Over 2 years after its opening, a desalting process has turned what was once a saltwater bay into a freshwater reservoir. The Marina Barrage complex is also eco-friendly. Its landscaped green roof cleverly provides natural insulation for the complex. And solar panels generate 76,000 kilowatts of electricity a year to power the site. Marina Bay is also the stage for Singapore's annual Dragon Boat Festival. Contestants race 500 meters to the finish line to the beat of drums in a fiesta of sweat and endeavor. The Marina Reservoir, along with other reservoirs in Singapore, was originally built for practical purposes. Now it's also a recreational paradise. It's all part of the smart, multi-purpose approach of the country's planners to the capture and use of water. Ironically, because of the lack of it. However, Singapore, the man-made miracle, wasn't always so. 2 centuries ago, it was a small fishing village surrounded by swampland. How it got to where it is today is an extraordinary tale of opportunity and vision. Singapore derives its name from a Sumatran prince who, after landing on the island in 1299, thought he saw a lion while out hunting and named it Singapura, Lion City in Malay. It's a country many doubted would survive independence as a developing nation due to its small size and lack of natural resources. So it made every advantage it has count. Singapore is strategically located off the southernmost tip of the Malay Peninsula, enabling it to establish itself as the main gateway to Asia for American and European shipping. Today, it's one of the world's busiest ports. Over 30 million containers pass through every year. If they were all lined up, they would circle the globe 5 times. It wasn't always this way. How it got to where it is now is an extraordinary tale of opportunity and vision. Almost 200 years ago, Singapore was a small fishing village located here at Boat Quay. At the turn of the 19th century, it was a mangrove swamp and home to the Orang Laut people. They were sea gypsies who lived on river sampans and survived on seafood. Today, Boat Quay is a thriving restaurant and bar precinct. The British governor of Java, Sir Stamford Raffles, arrived in 1819 and immediately saw the potential to develop Singapore as a trading port. Raffles quickly negotiated with the local sultan to hand over control of the island to the British East India Company. The sultan was Hussein Shah of Johor, and the Sultan Mosque here in Kampong Glam is named after him. Although he had no previous contact with the British, Hussein Shah had certainly heard of the might of the British Navy. In return for Singapore, Raffles had to recognize, on behalf of the British Crown, the Sultan as the rightful owner of nearby Johor in Malaysia. A title Hussein Shah lost to his younger brother when his father died while he was out of the kingdom for marriage. In the deal, the Sultan and the local chieftain received annual payments from the British. $5,000 went to the Sultan, which at the time was a huge sum, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today. The Sultan also demanded free land to build the Sultan Mosque, as well as a slice of the customs duties from the port. As trade boomed, close to 11,000 immigrants flooded in from the Middle East, India, Malaya, and China. The rich cultural diversity and character of modern Singapore was emerging. Raffles drew up an ambitious town plan, allotting specific residential areas for each racial group, which remain much the same today. By the 1890s, these banks of the Singapore River had become the center of commerce. Warehouses, boat building yards, rice and animal farms all jostled for space. Sawmills and shop houses added to the frantic energy. More than 100,000 people relied on the Singapore River for employment and sustenance. Ships would arrive from China, Thailand, and Vietnam with laborers and cargoes of dried goods and medicines. They left laden with produce, tin and gold from the Malay archipelago, opium from India, and English cotton goods and arms. An influx of Chinese immigrants during the 1800s led to the construction of the Tien Hock Keng Temple in the now historic Chinatown district. Remarkably, Singapore's oldest Hokkien temple was built without using a single nail. The temple's resident deity is Ma Tzu, protector of seafarers, making it a go-to destination over the years for visiting sailors. Proclaimed a national monument in 1973, the shrine was almost lost in the 90s. Termites had badly infested the wooden structure, threatening its very survival. The government, determined to preserve heritage buildings in the area, encouraged a major restoration program in the 1990s to save the temple. Up to 70 skilled Fujian craftsmen were recruited from China, including woodcarvers, artisans, and stonemasons. It took them 2.5 years to give the temple a clean bill of health. Singapore's legacy can also be seen in some of the city's most prominent landmarks, such as Raffles Hotel. Opened in 1887, this iconic colonial-styled building hosted many of the world's most famous people, including Queen Elizabeth II, Charlie Chaplin, and Michael Jackson. Its long bar was a popular watering hole in the 1930s for well-known writers, including Ernest Hemingway and Joseph Conrad. The hotel also had to entertain more unusual guests. A wild tiger came to tea in 1902. It found its way into the billiard room, where it crouched menacingly under a table, scattering guests in all directions. A member of Singapore's rifle team was hastily summoned, still dressed in his pajamas. With typical British stiff upper lip, he shot and killed the tiger, probably retiring to the restaurant for breakfast after that. The majestic Fullerton Hotel on Marina Bay is another historic building that has borne witness to the development of Singapore. Now a luxury hotel, Fullerton opened in 1928 as the General Post Office, as well as the exclusive gentleman's retreat, the Singapore Club. The building played a key role during World War II when it was converted into a military hospital. Here, doctors worked around the clock on wounded British soldiers in makeshift operating theatres. After the British surrender to the Japanese army in 1942, the Fullerton became the Japanese headquarters for the remainder of the war. The National Monument was bought in 1997 by a private buyer, who turned it into the $400 million hotel we see today. Fullerton's original architectural features have been retained and lovingly restored. A living museum and a symbol of the Singapore government's plan to protect its cultural heritage. Today, the Fullerton Hotel nestles into the massively transformed downtown skyline. It's a long way from August the 9th, 1965, when, after a short-lived union with Malaysia, Singapore became an independent republic. Back then, it was still a developing country with overwhelming population pressures. More than 50 years on, Singapore is thriving. Under the helm of its first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, who stayed in office for 31 years, Singapore became an Asian tour de force. The Singapore River, where it all began, mirrors the dramatic changes undergone by this city-state. For decades, it was a crowded and heavily polluted waterway. After a major government-led cleanup and makeover, it has become a magnet for visitors. As day turns to night here in Clarke Quay, hard-working Singaporeans and tourists come to relax. A vibrant entertainment precinct awash with restaurants, bars and nightclubs. A reminder of how innovative urban planning can overcome even the greatest of odds. Singapore, now a dynamic modern metropolis, is facing new challenges. Housing a rapidly growing population while staying creative and keeping an eye on the future is no easy task. Without the rich natural resources that most nations boast of, Singapore had to get creative. Reclamation engineers are hard at work, expanding Singapore's landmass. An extensive freshwater collection system supplies its people. Over the last 50 years since independence, Singapore has undergone an amazing transformation. A man-made marvel, where innovative thinking has created a city of the future. The sprawling Suntec City complex opened in 1997. It's a feng shui masterpiece designed to bring its 11 male investors fortune and success. The 5 towers and convention center are arranged so that they look like a man's left hand when viewed aerially. And in the center, the fountain of wealth appears like a golden ring in the palm of the hand. As the fountain is made of bronze, it is believed that the balance of metal and water will pave the way for success. Hollywood has also come to town. The Sandcrawler building is straight out of Star Wars. The Asian headquarters of Disney's Lucasfilm division. Inspired by the iconic Star Wars desert vehicle, the Sandcrawler, the state-of-the-art film and animation facility features a 100-seat theater, 8 floors of offices, and lush greenery. A modern icon and a tourist destination unto itself. Up until independence in 1965, much of what is now the central business district was dense housing that was literally falling apart. Since then, it has undergone a startling transformation. Some of the city's most dramatic residential buildings are located downtown. The Sail's 2 condominium towers are sculpted to look like a sail, with a huge canyon dividing them. It is one of the most expensive residential complexes in Singapore. A 1-bedroom studio apartment here can cost up to $1 million, while 4-bedroom penthouses are selling for the extraordinary price of $10 million. Just minutes from the central business district, the mesmerizing Reflections at Keppel Bay. Its designer, the celebrated Polish-American architect Daniel Liebeskind, a master architect who oversaw the reconstruction of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan post 9/11. Apartments at Reflections at Keppel Bay command breathtaking views of the waterfront and the city. The double curvature forms of its 6 towers defy gravity as they stretch up to the sky. A 21st century icon. Towards the west of Singapore lies the Interlace, designed by star architect Ola Sheeran. 31 6-story high apartment blocks are designed in a startling hexagonal pattern. A radical rethink of old-school concrete housing structures. And a lush vision of communal living and urban habitats in the future. Surrounding tropical flora connect to extensive roof gardens, landscaped sky terraces, and other green areas. An ambitious megastructure that defied its critics and won Building of the Year at the 2015 World Architectural Festival. Amongst Singapore's greatest architectural achievements is how it has revolutionized public housing design. At 50 stories high, the Pinnacle is the world's tallest public housing project. Its 7 towers are linked by steel bridges, creating a 500-meter-long sky garden on the 50th floor, as well as an 800-meter jogging track on the 26th floor. Everything engineered to enhance the experience of living at such a height. Here at Pungong, a former swamp, public housing blocks stretch as far as the eye can see. HDB flats, named after the Housing and Development Board, are a uniquely Singaporean solution to housing millions of citizens, despite the country's small size. A far cry from 1959, when over 500,000 Singaporeans were living in squalid conditions in the city centre or squatting in the suburbs. Nationwide, over 1 million HDB units have now been built. Even cemeteries are moved or modified to make way for the living. Here at the Chua Chu Kang Cemetery, 35,000 graves will be reassigned to accommodate new burial spaces. But there's a catch. You can only lease a burial plot for 15 years. With a staggering 82% of Singaporeans now living in HDB flats, they have evolved into mega villages with all the shops, conveniences and facilities a family would ever need. This scale of government residential planning and construction is unmatched anywhere else in the world. And it has changed the way Singaporeans live. Despite its success in revolutionizing urban living, Singapore envisions a future that unites the concrete jungle with the real one. The country is on a unique mission to transform itself into a city in a garden. Singapore is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. Unlike many other capitals, it is actively melding urban spaces with lush greenery. Citizens are also encouraged to cherish previously forgotten paradises. Unknown to many people, Singapore's territory covers over 60 other smaller islands. Compared to the hustle and bustle of town, it's like another world. Some have been shaped and expanded by the hands of man. Others are natural sanctuaries for an astonishing collection of animal and marine life. Sisters Islands below, 2.5 kilometers south of the city, are bordered by 32% of the hard coral species found in the world. The reefs play host to over 200 species of sponge and an incredible lineup of marine life. Legend has it that Big Sister and Little Sister Islands were formed after a young girl was kidnapped by pirates. Her weeping sister dived into the sea to swim after the pirate's boat, but sadly drowned. Her distraught sister freed herself from her captors and also jumped into the sea, but perished. A fierce storm broke, and when it subsided, locals found 2 new islands at the spot where the sisters had died. Singapore's first marine park was declared around the islands in 2014, and the marine life in it is thriving. One of only 2 remaining Neptune Cup sponges in the entire world was discovered here recently. Tribes of crab-eating macaques now roam the beaches. All part of a dedicated government effort to ensure its natural heritage is preserved for future generations. Other islands, like Kusu, have been expanded through land reclamation. Originally formed by just 2 rocky outcrops on a reef, Kusu has now been transformed into a landmass 7 times its original size through landfill. It got its name from a folktale about a giant tortoise that turned itself into an island to save 2 shipwrecked sailors. The sailors were so grateful that they built a Muslim and a Taoist holy shrine in the tortoise's memory, reflecting their faiths. Legend eventually became reality, and the island is now home to a Chinese temple and 3 Muslim shrines, attracting thousands of pilgrims every year. Not all of Singapore's surprising archipelago are sanctuaries for faith and wildlife. At the tip of southern Singapore is Sentosa Island, home to some of the country's prime real estate and the multi-billion-dollar playground, Resorts World Sentosa. It contains a casino, hotels, retail outlets, and an oceanarium. Right next door is Southeast Asia's first and only Universal Studios theme park. An extensive bus, car, and tram network transports more than 19 million tourists to Sentosa each year. And for those with no fear of heights, a cable car ride back to the city promises spectacular views. Away from the islands, in the northwest of Singapore, lies the country's first wetlands reserve, Sungai Buloh. Originally slated for agricultural development, mangroves now thrive in the coastal waters here, providing a unique habitat for a vast range of wildlife species. The 130-hectare park is a pit stop for migratory birds on their journey from Siberia to Australia for the winter. With herons, kingfishers, and even fish eagles calling Sungai Buloh home, it is a mecca for bird watchers from all over the world. The jewel in the crown of Singapore's prized green spaces is undoubtedly the Botanic Gardens, 82 hectares in size, located right at the fringe of the country's main shopping belt. Inscribed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015, the Botanic Gardens is over 150 years old. It contains a rainforest that predates the city around it. A reminder of its early British colonial beginnings is Berkoff Hall, an Anglo-Malaysian plantation house built in 1868, which has been restored to its former glory. It is named after father and son, Isaac and Humphrey Berkoff, who both served as directors of the Botanic Gardens. An assistant director during the pre-war years, Eldred Corner, really thought out of the box when it came to gathering flora research at the gardens. He actually trained coconut-collecting macaque monkeys to climb the trees and collect plant specimens for him. All was going well until war approached and he was called up for enlistment in the Singapore Volunteer Force. The unfortunate Eldred was viciously attacked by one of his workers, a monkey, and he failed the army medical. perils of research. One of the major attractions, though, here is the National Orchid Garden. It's a treasure trove of more than 1,000 different species and has helped make Singapore a world pioneer in the cultivation of orchid hybrids. To be a true city in a garden, however, will require more than conserving islands and public parks. Singapore must build green lungs into the DNA of the city itself. The Park Royal Hotel downtown is a modern-day hanging gardens of Babylon. Sky gardens fill its terraces and green spaces pepper the structure. Another Singaporean innovation to catch the eye is this remarkable animal bridge, clothed in native plants that covers a busy expressway. The Eco-Link is designed to encourage the local wildlife to take a walk on the wild side and cross the street safely. It also broadens their natural habitat to what it once was. And here in central Singapore is the latest and perhaps boldest environmental initiative. The 101-hectare nature park, Gardens by the Bay. All built on reclaimed land, this spectacular green space opened in 2012. A botanic garden of the future, its landscape is dominated by the Super Grove, which features these amazing super tree structures. These 18 concrete replicas of rainforest giants are dressed in a vibrant array of vines, ferns, and plants that grow up and around them. Reaching up to 50 meters in height, the super trees use technology to mimic the ecological functions of trees. Photovoltaic cells in the super trees harness solar energy to light up, just like the way trees photosynthesize light and convert it to energy. The futuristic super trees are rivaled only by these two glass-covered conservatories. In a country that lies 1 degree north of the equator, the conservatories had to install advanced shading and climate control technologies to keep plants from different regions around the world alive. At night, Gardens by the Bay comes alive in a spectacular show of lights and music. During the Mid-Autumn Festival, thousands of visitors enjoy not only the light shows, but displays depicting Chinese legends. Gardens by the Bay aptly symbolizes just how far Singapore has come in a little over half a century. Through hard work and innovation, Singapore has transformed itself from a third world country into a dynamic first world nation at the center of a rapidly growing Asian economy. Growth has been achieved without destroying its historic, cultural, and natural heritage. Singapore, a city soaring effortlessly into the future.